Okay, in this video, we're going to be talking about EQUIPS. Now, I am a sucker for creating acronyms. I like to use letters to make things work, hopefully to make them memorable. And EQUIPS was something I came up with because two things I love to talk about are questions and insights. And then I taught understanding, empathy, playing your role, all this kind of stuff is going to be part of what we're talking about here. And really what it comes down to is when you're having a sales conversation and when you're thinking about the conversation you're going to have, all of these pieces should be in there in some way so you have the highest probability of connecting with the other person. I'm going to go through this with you and then we're going to explain sort of how to bring it all together. So the first one we want to do is empathy. Empathy is a skill that you can develop, and it's really just all about paying attention and trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Now we talk about, know what keeps them up at night. I've said before, we've got to kind of get in bed with them, not physically, but get in bed with them at night and think, what's going on in their world, right? Imagine through their eyes, through their problems. Now, you might see a dog that's coming in and out here. She's a rescue that we got. And, she came from a tough place where she was abused. And so, it's different than we had a dog that just passed away. And I raised that dog from, 2 pounds, from 2 weeks old. And Roxy was the dog that I knew everything about her, every thing that was an influence on her, every motivation, everything that she'd ever encountered, I was there for. So I had a pretty good understanding. Like if I want to sell Roxy something, I could. But Cora, I don't know enough about her backstory to know what's going on. And so she would be, as a customer, somebody I'd want to ask a lot of questions to, somebody I have to empathize with and really put myself in her shoes before I try and push, before I try and take steps forward with her. So empathy skills are something where you just want to relax, create some presence, try and be in the moment, and really try and imagine what that person's going through rather than forcing them to take action. The next one is questions. Now, we talked a lot about questions. This goes really well. You want to help them frame the problem. It's not so much the questions you ask, but how you ask those questions. Then we're going to go into understanding. Now, understanding and empathy might seem similar, but what we're trying to do is with understanding is when we get into the conversation roadmap, you don't want to go further until you fully understand, until you get to the point where you're like, I get your story. I totally understand your reality, where you're trying to go, what that looks like, and it totally makes sense why we should move forward. So we have to empathize to understand, right? We have to ask questions to be able to make sure we understand. And then we're going to say, okay, let's share some insights. And like I said, we oscillate usually between questions and insights in a lot of our conversations. So we're not just interrogating people and we're not just making pitches. So we have to empathize, understand, ask questions, share insights where you give them ahas, where you're demonstrating your value, we're demonstrating your ability to help them, and you're helping them, demonstrate your skills and quantify results. I heard the dog in the other room. Then the next one is playing a role. This is something that I don't think is talked enough about in sales, is your role is going to change depending on your relationship with the customer. I know for me, I came from a background in education where a lot of times I was the only strong male influence in some of these young people's lives. So in helping them work forward, I was kind of a role model. Some other people I need to be a consultant for. Some people I need to be a coach. Some people you got to be a therapist with because they got a bunch of stuff going on. So you don't know what role you're going to play until you empathize, till you ask those questions. So if you see here, you could be entrepreneur, tactician, project manager, strategic partner, coach, therapist, life coach. You could be advisor, anything that you can think of. You have to assume a role where you're going to be the role that you play. And you're not trying to play different characters, but the role that you play to help them move towards a solution is really important, right? So you have to understand the relationship that you're trying to create and what role you can play to create that. And then the last one is stories and proof. And sometimes this is being able to share social proof, some case studies, testimonials, and really using that limbic system in their brain to connect some kind of associative context so that this person knows, okay, I can connect emotions to the stuff that we're talking about, to the features and benefits. How do we connect emotions to the feature of your product? How do you support an example? How do you support this specific scenario that they're in? I'm trying to decide between this and this. You know what? You remind me of somebody we worked with that did these things who were wrestling with the same problem. So now I would like you, if you're going to use this, just print this out. I'm going to use this a printout for you here. Just print this out, put it on your wall, and think about when you're in a conversation, can you get all 6 of these things in a conversation? Can you make sure that you're asking the right questions? Can you make sure you're switching over to insights? Can you make sure that you're present and in the moment, not waiting for your turn to speak and really trying to imagine their world and trying to get them, right? Because we're always worried about our customers not getting what we're trying to say. So why don't we lead by getting them first? And then once we are in our conversation, rather than trying to just move them through, we have to be in this moment, this mindset of seeking. That's the understanding piece. If we can tell their story in a meaningful way, we'll be able to help them move towards a decision. Then we're going to play this role to make sure that we're not overstepping, but we're giving them the service that they need at the right time in here. Sometimes it's just a pal that they need. Sometimes it's just some guidance they need. They don't need you to be their therapist, right? And then making sure that you can connect anything that you're doing to some kind of emotion or some kind of associative context, not necessarily big flowery presentation or some kind of like major emotion, but knowing that other humans have looked at this before. That's what's going to make this really powerful. So print this out and use it, and just remember the word equips.